Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The story of Prophet Dawud, David. Part 1 of the story of Prophet Dawud revolves around three significant figures. Prophet Dawud, known in Judeo-Christian tradition as David, King Talut or Saul, who was the leader of the Israelites. Then there was Jalut, known as Goliath. The story of Dawud and Jalut is recognized as the story of David and Goliath. King Talut led the Israelites' army, poised for battle against the formidable Jalut and his forces. Having endured severe losses to Jalut before, this impending battle stood as a pivotal moment in shaping the fate of Israel. As they marched toward the battlefield, Talut earnestly cautioned his men, Allah will test you with a river. Whoever drinks his fill from it is not with me, and whoever does not taste it, except a sip from the hollow of his hand, is definitely with me. Despite the king's clear warning, most among them drank freely from the river upon arrival. Consequently, only a handful who remained faithful were allowed to cross the river and participate in the battle.
فلما جاوزه هو والذين آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين ولما برزوا لجالوت وجنوده قالوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين.
Jalut, a formidable and towering presence on the battlefield, exuded an aura of fear with his might and prowess as a warrior. He was well aware that none dared to cross his path on the battleground, certainly not an army as pitiful as Talut's. He was confident that fighting Talut's army would be an effortless win. To heighten the spectacle, Jalut challenged any soldier to a one-on-one combat against him. The Israelites were terrified. The mere thought of volunteering for this challenge seemed tantamount to a death wish. King Talut grew increasingly anxious as none of his men stepped forward. Driven by desperation, he went as far as offering the hand of his beloved daughter Michal in marriage to any soldier willing to confront Jalut. Nothing swayed the men to come forward, not even the prospect of a life filled with riches and royal status. Then, to everyone's surprise, a young boy who had visibly not participated in any battle before stepped forward for the fight. Laughter reverberated through the enemy battalion, where Talut's soldiers shook their heads in disbelief. This courageous youth was none other than Dawud, hailing from the city of Bethlehem. Prophet Dawud stood firm in his resolve. He had already made up his mind to battle the giant. With unwavering pride, he told his king tales of how he had defeated a lion that had previously threatened his father's sheep, and how he overcame a bear on a separate occasion. Dawud further implored his king not to judge him based on his appearance, and reassured him that he was not afraid of any man or wild beast. Touched by Dawud's determination, King Talut responded, "My brave soldier, if you are willing, then may Allah guard you and grant you strength." The king himself took on the responsibility of preparing the warrior for battle. He dressed Dawud in battle armor and placed a sword in his hand. With nothing but a few pebbles in a leather pouch slung over his shoulder, a sling, and a wooden staff, Dawud was ready to face the giant. Talut, filled with concern, questioned Dawud, "How on earth are you going to defend yourself against a giant with a sling and a couple of stones?" In response, Dawud affirmed, Allah, who protected me from the claws of the bear and the fangs of the lion, will surely safeguard me from this aggression. Jalut's laughter resounded through the battlefield when he finally set eyes on his opponent. He bellowed, "Are you out to play war with one of your playmates? Or are you tired of your life? I'll sever your head with one swipe of my sword." Dawud replied in a shout, "You may have armor, a shield, and a sword, but I face you in the name of Allah, the Lord of the Israelites, whose laws you have mocked. Today you will see that it's not the sword that brings death, but the will and power of Allah." With faith in his Lord, Dawud loaded a pebble into his sling, took aim at Goliath, and released his shot. Before Goliath could get his bearings, pebbles tore through the air, striking him. The force of the pebble pushed Jalut back, blood streaming from his face, and instantly Jalut collapsed lifeless. Jalut's army understood that their leader's defeat by a mere boy was no ordinary incident. Fearing for their lives, they began fleeing. Fueled by years of anguish under Jalut and his army's oppression, the Israelites followed the troops, slaying every soldier they could lay their hands on. Thus, with Almighty Allah's help, the Israelites secured victory over their enemies and reclaimed their dignity. And overnight, Dawud ascended to the status of a revered hero. Honoring his word, King Talut gave his daughter in marriage to Dawud and appointed him as a chief advisor. Thus, Dawud's path to kingship was paved.
فهزموهم بإذن الله وقتل داود جالوت وآتاه الله الملك والحكمة وعلمه مما يشاء ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين.
Allah is showing us that those with complete trust and reliance in Him can overcome the greatest of odds. Dawud was so small, yet he toppled Jalut with such ease. A small force can overcome a much greater force. The story also teaches us a lesson in humility. We should never be too proud and think of ourselves as too big, powerful, wealthy, or beautiful. Just as quickly as Jalut had fallen, we too can have it all taken away. Don't be so arrogant to think otherwise. Be grateful to Allah. If He has given you wealth, use it in a manner that pleases Him, by serving the people around you and being righteous.